Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is kind of going to be a unique video. You cannot tell from the screen, but I am currently, 7 months pregnant. I'm almost done, 2 more months left. And this is probably going to be the last time that I am pregnant. So I wanted to talk about pregnancy, intuition, readings, how all of that might affect you. If you're a psychic out there, or if you are pregnant, wanting to be pregnant and want to ask psychic about questions kind of in that realm. So we're gonna kind of cover a bunch of Q&A questions that I got from you guys today, as well as just some of my own input about just pregnancy and fertility and readings in general, whether you are on the receiving end or the giving end. Oh, I forgot to move my coffee. Really quick. This is really cute. This is the Java socks, and I found one that was like Zodiac themed. So if you are new here, welcome. My name is Lauren. I'm a psychic, I'm a medium, among other things, but I'm also a psychic development coach. So I like to teach psychics out there how to develop their abilities and deal with different challenges and kind of just strengthen their abilities overall. So if that's something you're interested in, please subscribe. I've got a ton of videos here on my channel that you can check out. So the first part of this video, I'm just going to be answering a lot of your questions. These are questions that I've received in my past videos. They have been from Patreon members. They are from you guys on Instagram. And then the second part of this video is going to be just like what I think you should do with your intuition to read pregnant people or read yourself, like what you can use your intuition for in regards to like pregnancy and fertility. Now, during my first pregnancy, I did actually film like a very, very long vlog series. I will link that up above. I don't know how great it was. It was just something that I really wanted to do at the time. I did talk about like intuition, the various things I was going through at different stages and how I was using my intuition to navigate it all. So again, it's there. Now the first question, I've seen this one a lot, and that is, what is the difference between mother's intuition and like normal intuition? And I think this is a great question because I've often found that just the psychic ability in general is referred to as a mother's intuition. And it's kind of implied that only women have intuition. And it's because you're a woman and because you have the ability to be a mother. I think that this is super sexist and it's not true at all. I think that anybody can be psychic no matter what your gender is, or even if you feel like you are not of a certain gender. I think that the psychic ability is a skill. Anyone can learn it. This is not something that's just exclusive to women or women who have been mothers. I think that's just a huge myth. That's stupid. Now, an interesting kind of like sub-part of this question, I think is, can you be more psychic or less psychic when you are pregnant? And I think I had an old friend that when she was pregnant, she was kind of talking about how she was so blocked. Normally she would be very intuitive and she was just like getting nothing. And so I think this one is totally variable. It's totally dependent on who's asking the question. My personal belief is that in theory, you shouldn't have it affect your psychic ability. You shouldn't be more blocked. However, there's always a gray area here. And I do think that there are things that happen when you are pregnant that can block your psychic ability a little bit more. And I'm going to get into that in the next question, but I just want to talk about this in general in the theory of psychic ability. And in theory, you should be able to set your intention. You should be able to say, I can use my psychic ability. I am psychic. And you should be able to remove any blocks to your psychic ability. Again, in theory. So I do think that if you decide that because you're pregnant, you are not going to be able to receive psychic information, I think that's going to be true. However, if you set the intention that it's not going to affect you and that it's just like any other normal day, then that'll be the case. Again, gray area, and I will talk about it. More specifically with me, I've been pregnant twice now, and I both times did not notice a difference of my psychic ability being affected. Now, I will acknowledge that I definitely have like a bias here. I've only been pregnant twice, and I have been very lucky to have very easy pregnancies both times. So I could just be on the end of things being easy and therefore not affecting my psychic ability as much. However, there are differences that I had between my first pregnancy and this one, and I will say that I feel like there wasn't like a huge hurdle there. I was still able to do my psychic block removal stuff. I was still able to access my intuition. I did readings during both of them, and I truly didn't notice a difference between the two or being pregnant and not being pregnant. So the next question, obviously along those same lines, I've gotten this one many times, and this is, does pregnancy affect your psychic ability? And I would say absolutely it does, but not in the way that you think. I think most people assume that there's just some magical thing that happens where all of a sudden you're either more psychic or less psychic, and it has nothing to do with you. Again, I do think that the psychic ability is very intention-based, so if you set the intention that that's the case, it might absolutely be the case. However, I think that what really truly happens during pregnancy is that you have a bunch of blocks, a bunch more blocks that you have to deal with. And if you don't know what blocks are, like, I'm referring to them quite often, and these are like the things that block your psychic ability, that block information from coming through. I have a whole video on it. Truly, I think that your psychic ability is not affected. I just think you have more blocks to deal with when you are pregnant. So psychic blocks can be emotional, mental, they can also be physical, and they can also be spiritual. And so anytime you have something that could be like a self-limiting belief or a trigger or just life stresses, we call those psychic blocks. And they kind of, not harm, but they inhibit your ability to receive messages from spirit. And the whole point of, being a healthy, good psychic is that you want to remove these blocks. And I think that when I am pregnant, I have way more kind of like blocks that I have to deal with on a daily basis. For example, just like thinking about the first trimester alone, you are obviously very sick and you have to deal with the literal physical block of feeling sick. If you feel like crap because you feel like you're gonna throw up, it's going to be very hard for you to sit down and do a reading. So you have to kind of learn how to manage it. Second trimester, for example, was great for me. I was doing everything just as I normally did. I don't feel like I had any issues there. Again, I'm on the very privileged, lucky side of having very healthy, okay pregnancies both times. And I know that's not the case for everyone. And then third trimester, we have a lot more physical pains, like you are not able to sleep, like it's just like you become very like, just the round ligament pain, all of the pain that comes with it. It's very hard to kind of like work through, and physically you're very tired. And again, all of these can happen at different like trimesters. I'm just trying to like give examples. However, one thing that I want to point out with both of those is that you can have blocks that are similar to that and not be pregnant. You could be up partying all night and you can be physically sick the next day. You can not get enough sleep, and that is going to affect you in the same way that you would if you were pregnant. I don't think this is an exclusively pregnant thing. Again, it's just that being pregnant, you have more stuff going on. And you just kind of have to, again, learn how to manage it. So I think there's two things that the pregnancy does bring on that you're just not going to have happen if you weren't pregnant. And that is dreams, and then 2 being the physical challenges. The physical challenges I've kind of talked about. Part of that also is hormonal. You definitely have way crazier hormones going on during pregnancy, after pregnancy. I think it takes you like a solid even 6 months after you're pregnant to like get back to normal. And that's debatable. And with the hormone part of it too, like my hormones this time around have made me way more anxious than normal. So I'm having to kind of do my self-care routine, do talk therapy, do a lot of things for me that I need to be able to manage like my anxiety. And again, I think that's very like hormone based, because I'm not usually so like anxious. And that's just something that hormones bring when you are pregnant. So the physical challenges are added from pregnancy, but I do think that they are still manageable. You can still use psychic block removal, shadow work, tools, you know, to manage all of that. And that's what I've been doing. And thankfully, I know exactly what I need to do to work through all of these things. I have to do it a little bit more than I would normally be doing it. But because of that, I'm still working through blocks as they come up, and I'm not letting it affect my psychic ability. Now, the one thing that does happen, dreams. I don't know. Anyone that's been pregnant, like, you can speak to this, but because you are not sleeping as well, either because of just the changes in your body or the physical pain of sleeping. Like, I hate sleeping now. It's just like, I dread it every night. Because it's so, like, I am so restless and I wake up often, which is a really good thing for dreaming and dream work, because you're kind of always staying in a light sleep and you're not really getting too much deep sleep, especially towards the end. But even towards the beginning, I was having, every night, I have several dreams, constant dreams, nonstop dreams, and they are vivid and they feel real. I don't feel like I'm getting rest because I just feel like my life continues throughout the night, and I'm just dreaming and dreaming and dreaming. So that, I think, is, in a way, it definitely has like helped me stay intuitive. I'm using kind of like dream work techniques and I'm taking advantage of that, and I'm kind of like, oh, okay, cool. I'm going to do some dream work tonight because I'm dreaming anyway. So that last way that it affects your psychic ability is you definitely have more dreams, which can help you be more intuitive if you choose to like utilize it. So again, if you kind of believe in the intention that your psychic ability is not super affected, but you understand that pregnancy might like add additional blocks to your ability, it's all about just managing those, truly. It's about, again, using the tools. Again, I've been doing this for so long that I know the tools, I know what I should do to remove them. I've had to increase what I'm doing, which is kind of annoying, but it's part of like what I have to do. And so that is what you have to do when you are pregnant. And so some of the things that I have done during the first trimester when I was really sick, I changed my hours so that I knew that the earliest somebody was booking me for a reading, I was going to be okay. I wasn't going to be sick by then. This time around, I had a different like insurance and different midwives and everything. So I actually got some medication for morning sickness this time around, which made it like almost non-existent. So my first trimester was actually way better this time. This Halloween season, I was like basically right at the start of my third trimester. And that's where like sitting, I'm just like, I can't sit in one spot for too long. I'll start to hurt. And so I did shorter parties during the Halloween season. I told people instead of my max of 4 hours, I'm only going to do 3, which I know some people are like, wow, that's still a lot. But that was when I started to realize, okay, I'm like done at this point. But then after Halloween, I actually said no more in-person readings, no more like parties either, because parties are just like physically demanding. Because I have to like dress up, look nice, I gotta sit, and sometimes they don't give you the most comfortable like chairs. So I just kind of made an active decision that after Halloween, no more in-person parties. I had to put that up on my website. And just like no more in-person readings in general, just because driving like really hurts. If you're pregnant, you know what it's like. So again, I'm like managing it. I'm purposely not going out of my way to make it worse, if that makes sense. I understand like where my limit is, and I'm kind of adjusting my services based on that. So now I'm only doing like virtual readings until baby comes, and probably for a little bit after that, and then I can jump back into it. Oh, and one more thing, which is fitting, forgetfulness is definitely a thing. I know this one is long, but this is probably like the biggest like question that I get. You definitely have pregnancy brain. It is a thing. Literally yesterday, I poured my dog's food out into his bowl, and like the bowl was upside down, and he's looking at me like, are you kidding me right now? You're crazy. Pregnancy brain is definitely a thing. However, if you've seen my channeling video and my video kind of like on remembering or forgetting readings, that part of your brain in theory is not the part of your brain or mind that you should be using when you are doing a psychic reading. So yes, I'm more forgetful in like my day-to-day stuff, and just like sometimes I will lose track of like what I'm saying or thinking. I don't know why that happens in pregnancy, but it's totally a thing. But again, I don't feel like that affects me during my readings, because when I'm getting readings and receiving information, it's coming in and out, and I'm not trying to like remember things. It's using kind of a different part of your brain. And again, I will link that video up above so you can kind of get an understanding of that. So it should not affect your readings in that way, because you're using your psychic mind and not your logical mind. Like, this is different. What I'm doing right now, I'm filming a video. I'm trying to remember what I want to say. Thankfully I have scripts, but like it's hard because I'm like forgetting mid-sentence what I'm saying. I've had to restart several times. Again, that shouldn't be the case during a reading, because you're not trying to bring up information that you've memorized. What you're doing is you're receiving and then speaking forth what you got. So again, very different. Now, the next question that I got in a lot of various forms were kind of more geared towards me as a psychic trying to read somebody who is pregnant. And these were questions like, can you guess the gender ahead of time? Can you guess when someone is going to be pregnant? Can you guess how many rounds of IVF someone is going to need? Can you guess if you were pregnant before you were actually pregnant? Can you guess how long it's going to take for somebody to get pregnant? These are all very like common questions that people want to ask psychics. And I'm kind of lumping them all here because the answer is the same for all of these. And the answer is, in theory, yes, you should be able to answer that question. However, is it going to be right? I don't know. And that comes down to the very basics of what being a psychic is. You can absolutely use your abilities, you can strengthen them as much as possible and try to get that answer, but you might not always be right. The future can change. There's so many variables to this that yes, I can guess, and yes, I could be like, I think this is when it's going to happen. But again, with the future, because so much of this is future leaning, you could do something tomorrow that's going to affect your ability to get pregnant or not get pregnant or something. Ultimately, psychics can be wrong, and that's what you have to remember here, is that you can go to a psychic, you can spend your money, you can ask them these questions, there's nothing wrong with that. But you just have to take it with a grain of salt and understand how the psychic ability works and what you can and can't read. Again, though, with your psychic ability, you should be able to pick up any answer to any question. And this is through using your clairs. So my coach, Karen Fox, always said, you know, as long as we're using our clairs, you should be able to answer any question that somebody gives you. You can read anything. And, you know, that's a little bit different when you think about like a tarot card or an oracle card or even a pendulum. Sometimes they don't have all the answers. However, if you are asking a question of spirit, you're doing everything as correctly as you possibly can, you should receive a message back. So yes, I can get an answer. Is it going to be accurate? That's the part that people just always don't understand, is that it might not always be accurate. Psychics can be wrong. And if you're really new and you're like, what, psychics can be wrong? I have a whole video on it. I had one friend, when she was trying to get pregnant, was just constantly texting me, constantly asking me, when is she gonna get pregnant? When is this gonna happen? And it just drove me up the wall. And I think I had to kind of like tell her, like, look, stop asking me these questions. Even after I had explained to her, like, the future can change. And when she got pregnant, it was like, what do you think I'm gonna have? And it was just like, oh my God, stop it. We're not friends anymore. But it's the reason why I am not like exclusively a fertility psychic. Now, obviously, if people come to me for a reading and that's like one of their questions, I'll obviously read into it, tell them all of this of like, hey, I could be wrong. And yeah, sometimes I've been right and sometimes I've been wrong. The question of like, did I know I was pregnant when I was, there were so many emotions there because I wanted to be pregnant so badly that both pregnancies, like there were the months where I was not pregnant where there were days where I was like, I think I definitely am. I definitely am. And then the next day I'd be like, ah, no, I'm definitely not. You just second guess yourself so much, and it's because you have so much emotion behind it. And that's one thing that I talk about pretty frequently in my courses is that when you have such attachment to the outcome, when you are so emotional and you want to know the answer so badly, often it makes it really hard for you to pick up information. And so one of the things you have to do as a psychic is really try to set your emotions aside. Like think about it like when you're in a dream and you get so excited or so like scared or so angry or something that you wake up and you kind of ruin it. That's like the same thing here. You can't be too emotional when you're trying to get information or too attached to the outcome. Like if your life is so desperately dependent on the answer that you get, again, it's going to make it really hard for you to trust your intuition versus your fears, your intrusive thoughts, your anxieties. It starts to become very difficult to know what's your intuitive mind and what's not. I mean, even the second pregnancy, I was testing and testing because I was like, I know I'm pregnant. I know I'm pregnant. And then the tests were just not showing me anything. And then I gave up on it and I was like, okay, I'm just going to take this one last one. And then I'm not going to take any more until the next like month. And then popped up a tiny little red line and I was just like, what? And so yeah, I didn't know. I knew, but I didn't know. And I was just second guessing myself back and forth. So nothing there was reliable at all. As far as the gender as well, I was so attached to that as well that I could not like read it at all. There'd be days where I would think it was a boy. There'd be days that I was thinking it was a girl. So, but for some reason when I read other people, I just like, I do understand and I do feel like I can get a pretty clear like boy, girl, yes, no. But when it was myself, much harder. Really what that comes down to is like reading yourself versus reading others and knowing kind of like what affects that. Let me know if you'd want to see a video on it. Again, those are in my courses. But unless you like were really watching all my videos, I don't know if I've mentioned it before. Maybe I have. I did go to a fertility psychic for kicks and giggles this time around, just because I wanted to see what that experience was like. I think I paid her like $11.11 just to tell me the gender, because I wanted to see if they would be right. Again, knowing all that I know, she was wrong. She guessed boy and I'm having a girl this time. And I've had both the DNA test and the like ultrasound test, so I definitely know it's a girl. But yeah, that just proved to me that, hey, even psychics can be wrong. She totally guessed it wrong. Honestly, I haven't looked into any of it too much for myself because I know I can be wrong. I know I'm emotionally attached to it. So I haven't really truly bothered with trying to like guess my own due date. Like I have a gut feeling that it's gonna be like 1 or 2 days before, but who knows? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I do think that some of that stuff you can absolutely predict though, because I had always just known, like I remember being like 10, 11 years old and being like, I'm gonna have a kid when I'm 28. And I didn't like really like force that or try to make that to happen. Like I met my husband when I did. We met way before we had kids. We took a really long time to have kids. And it just happened to be that by the time we were talking about having kids, I was like, oh wow, I am going to be 28. That's weird. I always knew that. Similar things like that happened with the name. And I will talk about that in another question. Now, the next big question that I got was, can you communicate with your child ahead of time? This is something that a lot of people want to develop their psychic abilities to do. And I think you can even get readings on it. And I would say absolutely, but it depends on your belief. It depends on if you believe your future child is out there in some sort of spiritual form, either waiting to come here or what have you. So I feel like if you're here on my channel, you probably believe that to some extent. I, out of the many years of doing this, also believe that. I believe that, again, my personal belief, you don't have to take it, but just through the many readings I've seen, I just feel like we go to the same place when we all die, And this is also the place that we come from when we come back into this human experience. And I believe that if I can connect to people that have passed, because I've done it many a times, I've had these crazy experiences connecting to people that are dead that I just like blew my own mind. And I've had it be the other way too, with like spirits that haven't come in yet, or maybe they've lived a couple lives and they want to come back or something, or maybe they're new, who knows, whatever. But I do think that it does require some amount of belief that that is possible. I think there's actually a whole book on spirit babies and how you can connect to them. I will link it down below if you're really curious. I have not read it, so I can't endorse it or not endorse it, but I do know that it's out there. But truly, energy is energy. And I think we can connect with our guides, loved ones in spirit. I think we can connect to higher versions of ourselves. So why would babies not be included in that? Future kids. To me, it's just another being that's coming in here to live this human experience with you. And so you should, in theory, be able to connect to them. And doing so is just as simple as setting that intention. I want to connect to my future kids. And I would say, like, take it with like a grain of salt because things can change. When I asked this question years and years ago, back when I was in the Aspen program, because I was about to get married, I was obsessed with all of that, and I just wanted to know, when was I gonna get married? When am I gonna have kids? All that good stuff. And I can't remember if it was a shamanic journey or a meditation. But in that journey or meditation, I set the intention ahead of time. I want to meet my future kids. And I was taken to like a forest, and in the forest there was a tree, and it was hollowed out, and there were 3 owls in it. And I was just told, like, there's a voice that said, oh, these are your kids. And I remember like looking in the tree and seeing 3 kiddos, and I can't remember if I was trying to guess anything about the gender. I don't think I was, but it was like the first 2 were definite, and then I vividly remember that the 3rd was like optional. The 3rd was there if we so chose, but it was like up to us. And we had always been on the fence about having 3 kids. I grew up in a family of 3. My husband was an only child, but sort of, and we've, I think, kind of ultimately decided to stick to 2, but we're still keeping it open to 3 just to see. But point being, I connected to them and their energy, and I did it multiple times kind of over the years, and I can't tell you everything about it because I don't remember, but I would take notes on it. There was one time I did automatic writing to connect to my son when I was pregnant the first time. And I had him come through and speak, and he was like speaking in rhymes, and he was speaking about like all the things that he like was excited about and wanted. Really, I should have pulled it out for this video. If it's something you want me to go over, I'm happy to do it, maybe in like a Patreon Q&A. But I definitely connected to an energy that was not myself, that was somebody else, and I think it absolutely was him, just because some of those things have played out. Like he was also telling me some of like his food preferences ahead of time. Oh, and also my mother-in-law is intuitive as well, and she was also connecting to our kiddos ahead of time and getting information and sharing that with me as well, some of which she had said correctly. Oh, and I'm remembering too that Karen, my old mentor, I went to her at the time when my cousin passed, to mostly get a reading about him after he committed suicide. And she actually started that reading by reading me being pregnant and picking up information about my son. That all ended up being accurate as well. So yes, absolutely. Just through my experience and the experience getting readings through others, I think it's absolutely possible. Now, kind of like a sub part of this question that I'm adding is like, where do I experience that being? Because that part has always been weird, and it's been something I've been trying to figure out, is like, is that like entity coming from inside of me? Is it like already connected there? But every time I've connected to my future kids, they always feel like they're in front of me, like in the space in front of me. That's not going to be the case for everyone. That's just how I experience it. but I don't feel like they are like in my belly, if that makes sense, which is really interesting. And it makes me question, like, at what point does your soul connect with your body and like become one, you know? And I do think that it like, from what I've experienced, again, if you're a reader, if you've like tested this out, I'm very curious to know what you think. But for my two kiddos, it's very much seemed like towards the third trimester, towards the end, I've been like feeling them less and less as like an entity outside of me. And it feels more like they are in here and not so like aware of themselves. I don't know. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. And one of you asked, like, can you like see their face or like hear their voices ahead of time? And I just wanted to point out that that's totally dependent on your clairs. That's how you receive psychic information. So just because you don't see their face or hear a voice doesn't mean you're not connecting. Truly, that's dependent on which clair are you kind of favoring. I see and I hear mostly hear. Yeah, so I guess I've seen and I've heard my kids. I've never seen like what they look like. Again, I think that was just because I'm too like excited and emotional there. But I've always heard them. I don't feel like their voice like necessarily matches. I mean, maybe their voice will end up matching somewhere down the line. I've definitely had dreams where I've definitely dreamt about my kids. And then I've had moments in life where like even, I think it was yesterday, where I was just like, oh my gosh, I have dreamed about this moment with my son. But I had to have had that dream way, way, way before he was even born. But I couldn't tell you like what his face looked like or what his name looked like. In my dreams, they always look very like different. So I wouldn't put a whole lot of like attachment on that, I guess. But I think connecting to their overall energy, personality, that's going to probably help you a lot more than trying to like guess exactly what they look like or what their hair color is going to be. You're going to figure it out. Like, don't worry. You'll find out pretty soon enough. I think with all of this, like truly my biggest recommendation, if you're pregnant, seeking out information from a psychic, try not to get into manic manifesting. Try not to be so attached to knowing this information that you're gonna drive a psychic up a wall. Not that it's all about like being nice to psychics, which you should be, but I think that when you get really attached and really anxious and really worked up about knowing the answers to these questions, again, it comes down to like, what are you trying to control? What emotions are there that you're just like desperately having a hard time like dealing with? Like, why do you need to know this information so much? Like, yeah, it's one thing if you're playing around and having fun with it and you're just curious and you kind of have a loose attachment to it. But there's another thing of like when people are so desperate that they are like emotional because they need to know this information and their life depends on it. Like, that's an unhealthy attachment to like psychics that we can get into. That I don't think is healthy for you. And I think that it's something to kind of like check yourself on and ask yourself, okay, why is this so important to me? And it might reveal some stuff that you've got going on, some, fears you have, anxieties you have. And I think that's more important to delve into. This is why I don't like have anything up that's like, oh, pregnancy reading, blah, blah, blah. Like all you psychics out there that exclusively handle pregnant women and just answering those questions, I don't know how you do it because they could be so emotional, so desperate, so just like, oh my God, that I just, personally, I choose not to read those types of people. Like, I choose not to even do like emergency readings or like readings that, just anything that involves somebody being super emotional. That is a video that I'm going to do in the future. But it's just, it makes it a lot harder for you to read the client. It also makes it way harder for them to hear you or even listen to what you're saying. So yes, I do read it, but like, I'm not out there advertising it because the people that you attract are just, it's too much for me, too much for me. And then you get the women that like, if the future changed and they didn't get pregnant when the psychic said they were going to get pregnant, they come after you and it's just like, oh my God, no thanks. And if that's been you, it's okay. I get it. The hormones are intense. Now, the next question, this is one that I have just had the most experience with. Do babies pick their names? I think they can. I think that absolutely sometimes they are attached to a certain something. I think pets are the same way. Like, as I'm talking about this, keep this in mind for pets as well. Sometimes they're attached to something, sometimes they offer it up. Sometimes they don't care and they're just like, whatever. However, my experience both times, my kids have named themselves 100%. And I'm not going to share it because I want to keep like my privacy and my family like safe, because there's weirdos out there. Those of you who are on Patreon kind of know a little bit more of like my personal stuff. I share a little bit more there. But both of my kids have named themselves, and it has been so psychic, so intuitively like led. Like my first kiddo, we were like, okay, we need to sit down and name him. And we saw his name everywhere. It was like, I would see his name on a car, on a billboard. There was even like, we did like a networking event and somebody come up and shook our hand and was like, oh, hi, I work for so-and-so entertainment. And I was like, and the so-and-so entertainment was his name in there. And my husband and I looked at each other and we were like, we totally had one of those moments of like, oh my God, this is like his name and he's letting us know. And then there was another time we were taking a walk and a lady, her dog like came running out the front door and was like barking at us through the fence, and she yelled the dog's name, which was the name that we were going to name our son. There were so many moments like this where it would come up in conversation. I would see it on my computer, on TV. Like, it was just so loud and so obvious. And I will say that one of the names that I was attached to as a kid sounded very similar. It was a female name. Not the same name, but like if you said both of them out loud, you'd be like, wow, those do sound similar. And so I think to some extent I always like knew what his name was going to be. Now, as I'm saying these things, that doesn't mean that this experience is going to happen for you. So if you don't have this experience, like, don't beat yourself up trying to have it. You might have more of an experience of seeing their faces or really truly knowing their personalities, and more so than I did. I think that you just might get certain information and you might not get other information, and that's totally okay. And then for our girl, same thing happened where we had a couple names in mind, but then one really stuck out and we were both just like, that's a good one. And then we could never find anything else that was better, on top of, again, just all the intuitive like things that happen. Like, literally our local metaphysical store had a class on, well, okay, so part of what I'm giving away is we're naming a girl after a goddess, but the local metaphysical store had a class on this goddess and this goddess only. And it was just like, it popped up in my Instagram feed and I'm like, are you kidding me? And then how else did we find this name? I think it just kept coming up in like several ways, which was really interesting because when you hear the name, it's very like unique and very like, you don't see it often. And I don't know. And then one of the times my mother-in-law was over and she was like, what are you gonna name her? And we were throwing out some names, and then she was like, I don't know, I just feel like she said something about the stars. Like she wants it to be something with the stars. And this name, this goddess, is also like, she's in astrology as well. I'm probably giving away too much, but if you guessed it, please keep it to yourself. Oh, and then another experience that I had when I was very, very little, again, this was elementary school. I had a friend who had a little sister named this, like a form of this. And I remember just vividly, and I've always remembered this memory just kind of occasionally throughout life of when I was in her room playing with both her and her sister, being like, I'm gonna name my kid this. And I just like, I've always had that memory, and I've had that both with both of my kids. So I'm really excited about this because I feel like both of them were so like spiritually like led, and both of them just came through and were like, this is what I want. And I freaking love that. Now, again, you might not have that experience. That doesn't mean like you're just screwing up your kid. So yeah, they absolutely can pick their names. I can say so 100% from experience. Now, will they? Maybe not. I don't know. Sometimes I do think that that kind of thing is like left up to you. especially just coming from like perspective of like pets and stuff like that. I've also had people come to me like as soon as they've adopted a new animal and they're like, do they care about the name? And sometimes it'll be like, meh, or, you know, give me the couple options and we'll run it by them and see which one they like best. And the last question was more specifically towards me. Do I do pregnancy readings? Again, I don't exclusively do pregnancy readings. However, if you set up a session with me or if you do like an emailed reading with me, I will answer those questions. Just know that I'm going to give it to you with like a bunch of like, remember the future could change, remember this, remember that. So yeah, I'm not going to say no to it, but I'm definitely not out there advertising myself like a fertility or pregnancy psychic. I know that you can make a lot of money that way. I definitely know. But to me, it just feels like kind of preying on those desperate like emotions. And I shouldn't say that because I know that people, there's awesome intuitive people out there that do it with like the utmost intentions. But to me, I just don't want to deal with the desperate energy of others in that like stage of life. Now, the last part of this video, I just want to talk about how I think you can use your intuition to connect with your kiddo if that is something you're looking to do. First thing you can do, you can use your abilities to manifest a baby. Like if that's something that you want in your future, you can talk to your guides. You can, you know, maybe you're not even in a relationship yet. I think that honing your psychic abilities is also investing in kind of like your future and basically being able to have this like tool to help you pick which way to go and help you decide a direction. And so when you're trying to like manifest a partner or you're trying to manifest like having kids, you have this tool that is always there to help you and answer those questions and help you get to what you want to manifest. Like I think that often people come to my channel because maybe they're psychic and they want to be psychics and offer readings for other people, but I think the majority of my listeners, you guys probably just want to strengthen your psychic abilities for yourself. And I think that, you know, this is something that you can do and have in your toolkit in life. And you don't need to read other people. You can just have this awesome kind of like compass, this intuitive guide to kind of like guide you and help you manifest the things that you want, make decisions. And so I think that if manifesting a kiddo in your future is something you want, I don't think it would hurt to develop your intuition so you can listen to your guides and you can ask them, how do I get there? How do I get this? How do I do that? How can I co-create with you to get to this end goal? I absolutely did that in a very long roundabout way. You know, I had to first change my career and change like the money and, you know, everything that I was doing and work through my stress and bring my stress and anxiety down before I could even like consider having kids. And I used my intuition to do that, to take me to a life coach, to give me more tools, to talk to my guides and figure out what was really going on so that I could cross these things off my list and be more ready to have kids. You can also use your intuition to get more information about their personality, help you choose their names. You can just use your intuition to connect with them in general to answer any questions that you have about getting pregnant, when are you going to meet them, all that good stuff. Again, when you're pregnant, I definitely think you should use dream work as a tool, especially if you're already having like crazy vivid dreams. It's there, utilize it. And you can do all of these things by honing your psychic abilities. Everyone is psychic, everyone is intuitive. You don't have to see a psychic or a fertility psychic to get these questions answered. Obviously, it's a faster way of doing it. However, if this is something that you really want to like invest in, I highly recommend checking out my courses or just checking out my YouTube videos, understanding how your intuition works and developing it. Because again, like one thing I've said many times and I will always say it is like, this has become such a useful tool for me for manifesting anything that I want, for connecting with my guides, for understanding how to deal with emotions and challenges that I'm going through, dealing with traumas, triggers. Like this is a tool that I will never not use. Like I cannot just like turn this off. It has become so valuable for me to manifest the life that I want. That I think that you will apply it to more than just your pregnancy. It'll be such a useful thing that'll make you feel spiritually, mentally, emotionally, just more in alignment with yourself. And again, the desperation, the manic manifesting, the anxiety, the hormones, the physical stuff, that is all going to be like the hardest part here. That's going to be your worst enemy of just trying to figure out how to handle it, how to deal with it. Again, it's not that you can totally erase it. It's just about management. Just having those high emotions and being very like attached to the outcome is going to work in opposition to your intuition. So you really have to understand how to like pull those things back, either as a reader or, you know, reading other people, like you're pregnant like me and you got clients, or you are pregnant and you want to read yourself. Both of that's going to be very important to like remember to do. So yeah, that is like everything that I could think of when it comes to pregnancy, intuition. If you have any questions, please let me know. Especially while I still have a little bit more time left of being pregnant, I will answer them in the comments. Also, on Patreon, we have a monthly Q&A video that I put up. So any questions that you have like this, feel free to ask them there, and I basically respond in a video format every single month. That's kind of how this video started, was a lot of my Patreon members were asking me because they knew I was pregnant and they were curious about what that looked like, and I decided to just kind of make it a whole YouTube video. Patreon is a monthly subscription that you can cancel at any time, but basically you're going to get early access to my videos. We also have a monthly psychic development Q&A where you can ask me any questions that you have. We also have a monthly psychic development game night where you can practice reading others. I also provide a monthly reading night on YouTube where I read all of my Patreon members. And you also get a monthly reading of the upcoming energy of that month. You can join Patreon anytime using the link in the description. So thank you all for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like. And again, if you have questions, let me know in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.